for the break earlier due to technical difficulties. However, we still have news for you nationally. St. Kitts and Nevis has recorded 2 additional positive cases of COVID-19. Chief Medical Officer Dr. Hazel Laws made the announcement in a special edition of the National Emergency Operations Center COVID-19 briefing on Tuesday morning. She said the 2 cases are returning nationals who came to the Federation on a flight on Saturday, November 21st.
The Ministry of Health received 2 positive laboratory reports, that's COVID-19 laboratory reports, for 2 returning nationals who would have arrived in the Federation last Saturday, November 21st. So in essence, we have 2 additional imported cases of COVID-19. This brings the total number of confirmed cases of COVID-19 for the Federation to 22.
She assured the general public that all the passengers who arrived on the same flight are all in quarantine. In other news, the vibrancy of St. Kitts and Nevis' Citizenship by Investment or CBI program and the real estate opportunities available in the Twin Island Federation will be the topic of discussion on tonight's or the Tuesday, November 24th edition of Leadership Matters with Prime Minister Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris. Prime Minister Harris will be joined on this evening's edition of the popular virtual series forum by CEO of the Citizenship by Investment Unit, or CIU, Mr. Les Khan, as well as real estate developers and entrepreneurs, Mr. Farron Lawrence and Mr. Dion Daniel. The Prime Minister and his guests, particularly Mr. Khan, will update nationals and potential investors of the newest investment options that are now available through the Federation's Platinum-branded CBI program. Leadership Matters forms part of the consultative approach to governance adopted by the Dr. Harris-led administration, as members of the public are given the opportunity to engage with high-level officials. The call-in numbers for Leadership Matters are 1-869-466-2666, 662-8674, 767-4765, and 1-239-645-4500. Questions can also be sent via WhatsApp to 869-661-5683. Leadership Matters virtual forum simulcast on ZIZ Radio and other participating radio stations. It is also streamed live on social media platforms, including the Facebook and YouTube pages of ZIZ and the St. Kitts and Nevis Information Service, SKNIS. In other news, reigning Calypso monarch Sylvester Dorr, known in the Calypso arena as King Socrates, says he is ready to defend the crown in the Sugar Mass 49 Calypso competition. ZIZ News spoke with the king, who said his song will be released shortly. He said, Calypso fans can expect a great performance.
I will release my new song. I hope to defend and repeat. The name of the song is called A Rock and a Hard Place. But in terms of what my fans will expect, the same caliber from last year, or even better.
He said his first appearance for the carnival season will be on Saturday at the Legends virtual Calypso tent.
I'll be releasing my song around, well, I'm rendering on stage on the 28th. That's when we have our next Calypso tent. We had a number of tents planned, but due to the conditions set by the NEOC, we can only have one, every 2 weeks. So I'll be on stage on the 28th, performing in the new setting in Carnival City, live stream, etc.
The Sugar Mass 49 calendar indicates that the Senior Calypso quarterfinals will take place on December 12th and 13th, with the finals on Tuesday, December 29th. We now move on to news on the regional scene. There is anger in Brazil after a black man was beaten to death by 2 white security guards at a supermarket last week. A new video shows the moment João Alberto Silveira Freitas was pleading for his life. The government's response to the killing has sparked a wave of demonstrations. Al Jazeera's Monica Yanaku reports from Brazil.
The order came shortly before lunchtime. Lock the gates and keep protesters out. One by one, 3 Carrefour supermarkets in Rio de Janeiro closed their doors. The stores were heavily guarded, but crowds outside promised the siege would be long.
Today, tomorrow, and the day after, we will continue to show up at their stores and show them that we will not tolerate racism.
The protests began last Thursday after a black man was dragged out of a Carrefour supermarket in the city of Porto Alegre in the south of Brazil. He was beaten and choked to death by 2 white security guards. A new video shows the moment João Alberto Silveira Freitas was pleading for his life. "I'm dying," he says. Freitas' death is being compared to George Floyd's in the United States. Protesters accuse Carrefour of murder, but they also blame the government for not acknowledging and fighting racism.
This protest is not only about the death of one man. 7 out of 10 Brazilians killed by the police are black.
But Brazilian Vice President Hamilton Mourão said that contrary to what happens in the United States, there is no racism in Brazil.
In Brazil, there is no racism. This is something they want to import.
Rose Cipriano says Mourão's statement is proof that there is racism.
Racism kills 1 black person in Brazil every 12 minutes. By the time we finish today's protest, many will have died.
Black police officers are also more likely to die than their white colleagues, according to the Brazilian Forum of Public Security, mainly because they occupy lower positions. During a pause in the protests, MOISES ALCUNHA tells the policemen that they should all be on the same side.
We're fighting for my black skin, your black skin, our children's black skin. We must show Brazilians that Black lives matter.
They parted with a handshake and a silent promise of meeting again at the next protest. Monica Yanakiev, Al Jazeera, Rio de Janeiro.
A group of Venezuelans, including 16 children who were deported from Trinidad on Sunday while legal proceedings were pending, could not be returned to the country for a hearing of their case. Here's more.
The case was called before Justice Everson Quinlan Williams on Monday afternoon. Senior counsel Reginald Armour, who led the legal team for the Immigration Division, Ministry of National Security, and the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force, indicated that the group could not be returned as ordered by Justice Quinlan Williams, as they were already on an island in Venezuela's territorial waters. Justice Quinlan Williams also ruled that their current location meant that the habeas corpus lawsuit challenging their detention by state officials could not continue, as the court no longer had the jurisdiction to hear the case. Attorney at law NAFEESA Mohammed represented the families of the migrants. She said relatives in Trinidad are worried about the relocation of the children.
If there's any evidence of traces of the children, if they are found, God alone knows what next. Because my report, I was getting a report several hours ago that they were sighted somewhere near to the border between Trinidad and Venezuela.
The 3 women and 16 minors were detained after arriving in Chatham last Tuesday. The migrants were held in custody by police until their deportation Sunday morning, when they were placed on 2 civilian vessels and escorted out of local waters by the Coast Guard. Ms. Mohammed said the outcome of today's ruling has highlighted the need for Trinidad and Tobago to develop a strong refugee of migrant policy.
And now on the international scene, the Wednesday before Thanksgiving is traditionally the busiest day of the year for traveling in the United States. But this year, in the midst of a surging coronavirus pandemic, many government and health officials are urging families to stay at home. Al Jazeera's Kristen Salumi reports from the U.S.
Getting together for a big meal in person with loved ones is what the Thanksgiving holiday is usually about. But given traveling and eating together are considered high-risk activities in a pandemic, public officials are encouraging people to play it safe, with public service announcements like this one.
Why don't we prepare Thanksgiving dinner virtually?
And warnings like this one.
This is not a normal Thanksgiving.
Nationwide, daily coronavirus hospitalizations are at record highs in the United States, and deaths continue to climb.
You put that rate of increase together with an additional increase from the high level of social activity, that is a dangerous situation.
Even in New York, with one of the lowest infection rates in the country, private gatherings are being officially limited to 10 people, amid reports of large forbidden events like this Orthodox wedding, attended by thousands. But restrictions vary from state to state.
Our clear public health guidance is the safest thing to do is not to travel. And that is also a very important message, along with our message to get tested.
Travel is being strongly discouraged, but if you must fly, the CDC recommends COVID testing 1 to 3 days before. Airline passengers are required to wear masks, and airports are supposed to enforce social distancing.
No one is 6 feet apart. Like, everyone's kind of 3 feet apart or 2 feet apart. It's horrible.
But with no end to the pandemic in sight, many travelers appear willing to risk it.
We just felt like, okay, well, it doesn't seem like it's getting any better, so, I mean, we might as well just try to just have a little bit of fun without getting sick.
Transmission concerns are likely to drive some to travel by car, but with intensive care units becoming overwhelmed in many parts of the country and the bodies of the dead still unclaimed from New York's surge in the spring, officials are hoping many Americans, especially those most at risk, will just stay home. Kristen Salumi, Al Jazeera, New York.
United States President-elect Joe Biden has been formally given the go-ahead by the federal agency, the General Services Administration, to begin his transition to the presidency. It follows the battleground state of Michigan certifying him as the winner there. U.S. President Donald Trump tweeted that he gave the GSA permission to move forward, but added that, quote, "Our case strongly continues. We will keep up the good fight," end quote. Here's more.
After weeks of fighting from a bunker, Donald Trump has reached as close as he'll perhaps ever get to a concession. First came a letter from Emily Murphy, the head of the General Services Administration, stating the president was ready to begin the formal transition process. The Trump appointee defended herself and the delay, saying, "I was never directly or indirectly pressured by any executive branch official, including those who work at the White House or GSA, with regard to the substance or timing of my decision." Mr. Trump followed very soon after with this tweet. "I want to thank Emily Murphy at GSA for her steadfast dedication and loyalty to our country. She has been harassed, threatened and abused, and I do not want to see this happen to her, her family or employees of GSA. Our case strongly continues. We will keep up the good fight, and I believe we will prevail. Nevertheless, in the best interest of our country, I am recommending that Emily and her team do what needs to be done with regard to initial protocols, and have told my team to do the same."
Madam Chair, you have 3 aye votes, 1 abstention. The motion does move.
But it looks all but over for Mr. Trump. Michigan, the latest state to certify a Biden victory. Delivered the same day, the Supreme Court in Pennsylvania rejected his latest legal maneuver. Joe Biden has had to improvise, denied any deference from the president. He can now access millions of dollars in government funding, COVID-19 data, and some classified briefings.
It gives the American people confidence. It gives the people around the world confidence. Again, in the continuity of our government, in the continuity of our democracy. Joe Biden's going to keep doing what he's been doing. Like I said, he's an optimistic guy. He's a very faithful man. He'll rely on his faith, as he has been always in his life. And I think we're in great hands with his leadership.
A peaceful transfer of power does look more likely now. But talk of a conspiracy and cries of fraud, they for one man may last a lifetime. Cordelia Lynch, Sky News, Washington.
And now for the weather. Present weather is partly cloudy with slightly hazy conditions and a light breeze of 5 miles per hour from a southeasterly direction. Seas are not exceeding 5 feet. Weather forecast for St. Kitts and Nevis says today will be partly sunny in general with a 10% or slight chance of a brief shower, while tonight will be fair to partly cloudy with a 40% or moderate chance of brief passing late night showers. Sunset today will be at 5:34 p.m. and the sun is expected to rise tomorrow at 6:20 a.m. And that brings us to the end of the ZIZ Midday Newscast. Join us this evening for these stories and more in detail. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am your presenter, Shaira Flanders. Have a good one.